Alright, today we're going to start looking at Lesson 7, Solve for Unknown Angles, and Lines at a Point. So, starting out here, we have to recognize that angles are an essential part of geometry, and we're going to be using these quite a bit. So, let's first get some names down, look at the diagrams here, and find out what we know about this. So, looking at this, we have here vertical angles, and this is our diagram here. So we have this angle 1 here and angle 2 on the other side. Well, we know if we actually look at this, these are kind of like scissors. And with a pair of scissors, if you open and close a pair of scissors, you notice that the angles that are opposite each other are going to be the same. They're going to expand and they're going to contract the same amount. So what we know here is that angle 1 is going to be congruent to angle 2. Okay? Because of this property of quote-unquote scissor angles. Now, we look here, angles forming a right angle. We see here, we know a right angle here has 90 degrees. So we know that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 is going to equal 90 degrees here. Then right here, angles on a line. So we know from our past experiences, we know that a straight line is the sum of 180. It's going to be 180 degrees here. So we see here that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 is going to equal 180 degrees. Now, angles at a point. Well, we know if we look at this point here, we know this on this side here, we actually constructed in an auxiliary line, which we'll go into later. We see here that this is 180 degrees on this side of the line. So whatever angle 1 plus whatever the measure of angle 2 is, that we almost looks like cut in half, but we didn't. And right here, the measure of angle 3 plus the little piece we have left over here is also 180. So we know around the points here that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3 is going to equal 360 degrees. So those are important facts that we need to know in order to move on to actually using these properties to solve for unknown angles given the future information that we are going to receive. So, well, we need to have some definitions here. We need to know what complementary, supplementary, and adjacent means. So complementary angles are the sum of the angles equal 90 degrees. So angles forming a right angle would be called complementary angles. And supplementary angles is the sum of the angles equal 180 degrees. So we look right here, the angles on a line would be called supplementary. Now, adjacent is an idea that we use and take for granted in our English language. Adjacent here is two angles next to each other that share a common ray. So if we look right here at angles on a line and angles forming a right angle, we see that these two angles here share this ray in common. And in this case here, these two angles share this ray in common. But couldn't you say vertical angles could also be adjacent? They cannot be adjacent because they share a common point. They don't share a common side. So 1 and 2 would be opposite each other. They'd be opposite angles, not adjacent. So now let's take a look here. Let's find some unknown information here about this using the information that we just learned. So looking here at this example here, we need to find the measure of angle 1. So we know this here is going to be 45 degrees, 145 degrees plus whatever the measure of angle 1 is going to equal 180. So let's write that down. 145 degrees plus the measure of angle 1 is going to equal 180. So we're just going to use algebra and actually subtract 145 from both sides. Get the measure of angle 1 is going to equal 100. Sorry, not 145. It's going to equal 35. So measure angle 1 is going to be 35 degrees. And reason, they're supplementary angles. And I'm going to use the shorthand angle symbol just to save us some time and some writing. So looking at here, number 2, 3, and 4, we are using this example right here. So we can approach this many different ways. So the way I'm going to proceed may not be the same way that you may proceed. So I'm looking here, I see here that 2 and 4 and the 40 degrees are going to be congruent to each other. They're going to be equal. Why? Because they're vertical angles. So the measure of angle 2 is going to be 40 because they're vertical angles. And now, since I know that's 40 degrees now, I notice here that 40 and 3, they form a straight line. They're supplementary angles. So 180 degrees equals the measure of angle 3 plus 40 degrees. So if I subtract 40 from both sides, I'm going to get the measure of angle 3 to be equal to 140 degrees. And that's because here they are supplementary angles. And now looking at number 4, 3 and 4 have to be vertical angles. So that has to be also 140 because they are vertical. I could have honestly proceeded a different way if I chose to do so. I could have started out with 40 here and found out that these are supplementary angles, and I could use supplementary all around and actually gotten the same exact results down here. Now looking here, number 5, angle 5 is this angle that's way out here. So now we have to decide, what is this? Well, this is actually the angles around a point. So we know this is 122 degrees. We know 122 plus the measure of angle 5 is going to equal 360. So if we actually subtract 122 from both sides, we're going to get, I'm just going to do the math right here. We're going to have here 138 degrees. So if you actually add those two up, you are, sorry, 238. I apologize, 238 degrees. So the measure of angle 5 is going to be 238 degrees because they're angles around a point. So now we actually start to have more shapes, more figures that actually become more complex. But using these simple ideas that we just learned, we can proceed to actually solve this entire picture. So right here, looking at this, name an angle supplementary to angle HZJ. So we're looking at an angle supplementary to HZJ and provide the reason. So if this is my angle right here, HZJ. Now, in order to have it be supplementary, it has to be 180 degrees. So if I look here, I see JZF here is going to be, because they form a straight line. So I'm going to say angle JZF is going to be supplementary, and the reason is they are adjacent. Okay, so now we have to name an angle complementary to HZJ and provide the reason. So I know complementary has to equal 90 degrees. So I'm looking at my figure here, I see this here is 90 degrees. So if I know a straight line has 180 degrees, and AZF must be 190 degrees, HZA must be 90 degrees, because 90 plus 90 is 180 degrees. But I see this here, AZH is cut into two, so I have here my HZJ. So I'm going to say here, angle AZJ, and provide the reason. They are also adjacent, and they have to add up to 90 degrees. Now name an angle congruent to HZJ and provide the reason. So I'm looking at my picture here. This angle here does not look like this angle here. This angle here does not look like this angle here. This angle here, HZG, is definitely does not look like HZJ, but I'm looking at FZG. Wait, they look like they're vertical angles. So angle FZG is going to be congruent, and they are vertical angles. So we just saw here, looking at this picture and just using the ideas that we just learned, we can now proceed to actually find anything about a picture given certain information. So we're going to do a couple of these exercises here just to get a feel for this, and then you can try the rest on your own, which is uploaded on the website. So find the value of x and or y. So you might have to solve for two unknowns in each diagram below. Now we have to show all our steps to the solution. So right here, I have 97 degrees here for this angle here. I have an unknown angle x, and then I have this angle measured at 36. And I notice that they form a straight line. So 97 plus x plus 36 has to equal 180 degrees. So using algebra, we're going to combine our like terms. I'm going to have 180 is going to equal to x plus 133. Okay? So now from here, in order to solve for x, we have to subtract 133 from both sides. And in doing so, we have x is going to equal 47 degrees. So this here is going to be 47 degrees. And if you go back through and actually add all these up together, they're going to have 180 degrees right here. Now in the second one right here, we have, looks like we have a right angle because we see this square symbol in the corner. If we see a square corner, it's going to be a right angle. So we know that these three here have to add up to 90 degrees instead of 180. So we're going to have here 40 plus 36 plus x is going to equal 90. So we can combine our like terms. So we have 76 plus x is going to equal 90. And when we subtract from both sides, we're going to have x is going to equal 14. So this little sliver here is going to be 14 degrees. Now, we have only one angle here and two unknowns, but they're the same angle. So, but we see that this forms a straight line, so we know here 82 plus x equals 180 degrees. So now we can combine the like terms. I have 82, so I'm just going to leave that right there. And I'm going to combine my x's, which gives me 2x equals 180. So now, at this point here, I'm going to subtract 82 from both sides. So when I subtract 82 from both sides, I'm going to have 2x is going to equal 98 degrees. And then when I divide both sides by 2, x is going to be 49. So each of these pieces right here is going to be 49 degrees. Now this last piece here looks a little complex, but considering we just done the same algebraic work up here, we can definitely do the same down here. So starting out right here, I know I have angles around a point here. So I know my total is going to equal here 360. So I'm just going to add all these around. Add all these terms. So I'm going to have 91 plus x plus 91 plus x plus 91 plus x. So now, here I'm going to combine all my terms together. So 360 is going to stay the same over here. I have 1x, 2x, I have 3 x's here. I have 91 and 91, which is 182, plus another 91 is going to give me 273. Alright, so that was the most difficult part of this problem here, was just setting this up. So now we're going to subtract 273 from both sides. Just do some little math here. We're going to have here 87 is going to be equal to 3x. Alright, if you have a calculator, you can use it to make the math a little bit simpler, but showing it longhand might help others out. So right here now, we're going to divide 3 from both sides here to get x by itself. So then I'm going to have x is going to equal to 29. So each of these little pieces here is going to be 29 degrees. So if there are any questions in regards to this on how we proceeded on here, you may come ask me after school or send me an email through this channel.